Good evening. I'm going to call the Thursday, February 20th Borough Council business meeting to order. Ira, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Ms. Stiles, will you call the roll?
Yes. President Bush.
Here.
Vice President Rickers. Here. We have Chairmember Winston.
I'm here.
And Chair Salmonson. Right.
Here.
And we got Member Brock. Here. And Member Gardini.
Here.
Member Spear.
Here.
I'm sorry. I'm not looking at my agenda here. And we have Mayor Deutsch.
Yes, here.
Very good. Okay.
All right. You can just call us all council member.
Council member.
That's fine. Or it's usually president, vice president, and then council member. I
Okay.
apologize. Or our names.
I'm just coordinating all the
That's
tech
fine.
right here.
Okay. I have no comments this month. Mayor Deutsch, do you have a report?
Just briefly, I just want to remind everyone, the police department is trying to get out the message that if you need an officer, it is okay to call 911. It does not have to be a fire, hair on fire emergency. If you just need an officer to come to your house to take a report, something's stolen from your car, someone's parked in front of your driveway, it's okay to call 911. It's more than okay, it's very appropriate, so that your call can be directed to the appropriate personnel. And so I know people are reticent sometimes to dial it. It's an appropriate use of the resource, and it allows us to keep proper records and have a streamlined system when you need an officer. So please use it.
And Mayor, you mentioned if you get something stolen from your car. What's a good way to avoid having things stolen
A
from your
good
car?
thing to have things stolen from your car is please lock your doors. You know, this is, since I've been mayor, I do this several times a year. I make this announcement. Please lock your car doors. Please take the keys to your car. You may think you have found the perfect hiding space. I assure you, you have not. And the thieves know all of the places to look. So take the keys with you, lock your cars. Let's not make our town an easy target where thieves know that they can come and find easy access to people's things. So that's a good reminder, my monthly reminder.
All right, thank
Yes.
you, Mayor Deutsch.
Thank you.
Ms. Stiles, do you have a borough manager's report?
Yes, I do. So one of the main things that we've been focusing on the past couple of weeks is putting the job post out there and receiving applicants and interviewing candidates for the position of assistant manager. So we did receive over 20 applications. We held 4 in-person interviews, and we did follow-up second round interviews. We have 2 very qualified candidates. So I am considering those options now, and hopefully we'll be making an offer by the end of the month. Both candidates said that they would be able to start sometime in March, so I hope that by this time next month we will have somebody ready to go for that position. That will be a huge benefit to the borough operations to have somebody full-time in person here with us. And we do still have Alan is in a part-time position to help with that transition, so he will be staying on for a few weeks after the new person starts to aid in that training. Otherwise, we completed a number of preliminary reports that are required as part of our end-of-year reporting for 2024. So those reports have been submitted to various state and federal agencies. We also had a kickoff meeting with our new consultant, Revise, for our new website design. So I'm very excited about that. Kelsey is taking lead on this. She's doing a wonderful job. And I know, Mike, you said you wanted to be in on this, so we will be looping you in as we go. And And so I'm very excited to see, so we just did kind of preliminary scoping, and we will be getting our initial draft and design in about 6 weeks or so. So that will be shared with you all when we have that for some preliminary feedback.
Are they going to be at a meeting to share that, or it'll be over? I guess it.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
TBD on that.
Okay.
We'll see how the formatting works and what makes sense as we approach.
Okay.
Let's see, otherwise, we have kind of general odds and ends that we've been doing. But another kind of highlight that I want to touch on is that we are secured on Amtrak's funding schedule for the North Narberth Avenue Bridge project. So that is a huge step. We have secured all of our utility contracts, all of that has been worked out, and we are now officially on the funding schedule for Amtrak. We're not yet on the project construction schedule, but we are on the funding schedule, and that is a huge accomplishment. So things are progressing there, and we hope to provide more updates as we receive them. But that is secured. I do have that confirmation. So those are the main highlights that I would like to touch on.
And you've shared that with me, but our best estimate is that the federal government is unlikely to change any aspect of the funding on this project, that this is.
Yes, we are optimistic because this is a roadway transportation improvement, that this will not be impacted by any sort of federal funding freeze. We have not heard any information to date that would suggest that there is going to be a funding freeze for this project. So we will remain optimistic, and we will continue to proceed as scheduled. We are on the funding schedule, so we are proceeding as planned. We have done all of the things, crossed our T's, dotted our I's, so we are in a good position to move forward, and we will continue to do so until we hear otherwise.
All right, thank you. Great news.
Is there any possibility with the things that are unknown that we would lay out money that we would expect to get back only to find out later that we would not get it back? Or is there a way to prevent that from happening?
So as I understand it, the project, the way the funding has been structured is we will have a down payment essentially that we will need to make. But once that is paid, then the rest of the project is being paid by federal sources. So I don't know the full answer to that question, but as long as there's funding available, we should be getting any and all reimbursements that are owed to us if everything is not being paid directly by Amtrak themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just with the state of the world in the flux that it is, it was just a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be sure to monitor all of that to make sure that we're not caught flat-footed if that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have really excellent consultants to help with that, so we will be tracking this very closely.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it's distressing that we have to worry about this, but that is the state of the situation. New York State had $80 million clawed back out of a bank account they thought they controlled from the federal government. So, yeah, it's good that we're on top of this.
Okay.
We'll remain hopeful that it will continue to be a smooth process going forward. Okay, let's move on to public comment. As a reminder, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to make a public comment, just indicate it to me and then stand up and give your name and your address and then begin your comment. I'll start with the front of the room here. If anybody wishes to make a public comment. Second row, third row, anybody wish to make a public comment at this time? Okay. We will move to folks online. If you're online and you wish to make a public comment, please raise your hand or otherwise make yourself known. So, Carol Marie.
Hello, everybody. Carol Marie Scanlon, Sabine Avenue. Several questions I have for you, Fred. What was the result of the conversation walkthrough that the private school that you talked about at the last meeting for 201? What happened with that conversation? What was the result of that?
Carmen, I'll just ask you to make your entire comment and then I may respond. So is there anything?
And then, all right, what piece of real estate are you discussing the disposition of when you go into executive session? And my next is, what were the results of the survey of the 201 property, and are there subdivision plans in the works, and what is the appraised value? And then item 14 of the engineer's report says the 201 Sabine property conduct a field survey of the property to identify property boundaries and prepare existing condition plans for borough records and use. Can you explain or give an explanation on those 4 points, please?
Sure. So council had a discussion and we agreed to allow the school that had interest in 201 Sabine to do a walkthrough. I don't believe that that's actually happened yet.
No, it was scheduled, but because of the snow, it was rescheduled for next week.
Yeah, okay, so they will be permitted to do a walkthrough and it'll be next week.
Okay.
The real estate, yeah, we're gonna be talking about 201 Sabine in executive session because the survey has been done, so we're gonna be talking briefly about that and about next steps. We will have the survey will be an agenda item next month, at next month's meeting. So we're not really prepared to take any action based on the surveys tonight. But we will be discussing them next month. And the engineering item that you identified was the surveys. So the surveys have been done, there have been no appraisals done yet. Council will have to approve that, and that will be a discussion item, well, that will be an action item next month to whether or not to approve those appraisals based on the survey results. So next month, it'll be an action item.
So is the survey discussing the subdivision of the property?
We have currently no plans for, I mean, the survey has created potential subdivisions, but we're not going to actually subdivide the property at this time. We are just figuring out what the value would be of different configurations of the property. There is no specific subdivision that we are considering at this time. That would be later on in the process.
And when do
we
you
have not determined that we are going to take an appraisal. That is going to be next month. We are going to decide whether we are going to do appraisals, if so, of which areas. So that'll be next month.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol Marie. Is there anybody else who wishes to make a public comment online? If so, please raise your hand and make yourself known. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Thank you, everyone. And we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda items A through F.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second?
All right, any discussion of the consent agenda? All right, we will vote on approving consent agenda items A through F. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Presentation items. 9A is the paving plan. Don't think we need a motion for a presentation. So.
Or we will share that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have a document to share in a minute. Excuse me.
Apologize, this was, I thought part of the packet, and then it turns out it's not part of the packet.
All right, well, I can talk briefly. So a few years back, we did an analysis of the road conditions throughout Narberth. We got the assistance of our engineering firm, Pannoni, in characterizing the quality of all of the roads and identifying which ones are in need of repairs and on what schedule. So our public works staff have been working with our engineers to determine what makes sense to do when. And this has been budgeted for this year. We budgeted out of our liquid fuels money. We receive money from the state of Pennsylvania every year that has to be used. It comes from gasoline taxes paid by Pennsylvania residents, and it has to be used for mostly road projects. Very limited amount of things that we can use that money for. It's intended to be highway maintenance. So it's just a matter of figuring out when and where to do the repairs.
Yeah, so while we work to attempt to get a picture up here for where we continue, or for where we plan to continue paving, we plan to pick up where we ended in '24 with the remainder of Haverford Avenue from Iona down to the traffic light at the pub, the 1 and 200 blocks of Grayling Avenue, the 100 block of Hampton, Windsor Avenue from Narberth to Iona, and Iona from Haverford all the way down to the new development at where Albrecht's once stood. So this represents about 0.74 of a mile out of our total 10 3/4 mile that we have within the borough. We will have a field engineer out here next week to begin to measure and get a very accurate cost assessment from our engineering team. But yeah, it was discussed, and we did approve the funds during the budget conversations. The replacement costs for the manholes will be included from our sanitary sewer budget fund, so there will be no additional cost to that. Included in this paving program will be the replacement of several ADA ramps on the corners, we'll have to have a discussion about Windsor and Iona, the crosswalks there. We just feel that the frontage on Iona, where the two crosswalks lead to, has too short of a sidewalk there. With one house that have two ramps, we feel we would almost create a tripping hazard. So that might be an intersection where we look at kind of choking it down to one central crossing point. And then we'll get our data. Engineering team will present their real world information and numbers from there, and go out to bid. The plus side with paving a larger area is we'll get a larger company which most likely will come in a cheaper price per yard.
And I know that the other step we took, in addition to having the analysis of the road conditions, was to look underneath the roads and determine if there were any repairs that were needed to the various pipes underneath the roads before we do the roads themselves, the scoping of the wastewater and the stormwater infrastructure down there. So.
Yeah, so when we raised our sanitary sewer maintenance budget from $30,000 to $160,000, that afforded us to be able to clean and televise, several miles of pipe work each year. We have about 22 miles of underground pipe work within the borough that we do own, that we are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of. And, we made our repairs in those areas over the last 2 years, so we're now set to pave there.
Are we doing any love? No?
I think you did a great job of describing the streets. If you can't pull this up, I think it's fine to just post it online if everyone agrees.
I did just get it.
Oh, you got it. Hey, all
All
right.
right. Would like me to kill some more time.
You want to do a stand-up routine here? Yeah, how's your...
You did a good job at describing it, Jeff.
Jeff, do you know of any other major road work to be done by public entities during this time?
So our PA One Call, which is the company that you call into as an excavator for any proposed work, They have a new platform that they launched, so once this paving plan is approved, we will upload it to them. They will ship it out to every company, Aqua, Pico, Comcast. We'll give them a deadline of when we are paving. And, they better get it done before that, or, they're not gonna like what happens.
Okay. I mean, and to the extent that we can get good redirectional signs up to when we have to close roads, because in the past, it's been a little bit of a frustration for some drivers. They can't get to where they need to go. So to the extent that we can put in good directional signs, that would be helpful.
Certainly. Yeah, so up now is a map of, the roads that are in black are what we plan to pave, this year. That will complete, kind of that, southeastern triangle of the north side of the borough here. So this year we did Haverford from Montgomery to Iona and picked up all of Shirley Road. And, kind of my thought process in doing, this much is it is a great entryway into the borough. The new development up there looks marvelous, so I really want to start focusing on paving our main entry roads to the borough. It just puts a good face on the town.
And how will residents get alerted about road closures that happen?
We will, the contractor will be posting signs, plus, with this large of a project, I would anticipate that borough staff, would mail something out to the affected people. We'll definitely have traffic plans in place. We'll pick it for, like a later date in the summer, when most folks are all, gone from town here. And then any questions?
I'm looking, I
Thank
don't
you.
see any at the moment. Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments or, no? All right. Thank you, that's good. And 9B is the stormwater bump out installations. Next presentation item, hopefully.
Yeah, so back towards the end of 2024, we were tasked with coming up with a comprehensive list of 30 potential bump out locations with the idea that we're going to be installing about 19 or 20 of them. So for 2025, we narrowed that list down to, or of that list, we've narrowed down 4 locations that we'd like to do for 2025. Those locations, which I think Maggie's getting up right now, those locations are two on Grayling Ave, I believe on the 200 block of Grayling. The idea is that we'll put one on either side of Grayling Ave. And then we'll have one on Conway Ave at the intersection of Stewart Ave. And then a fourth one on Dudley Ave also at the intersection of Stewart Ave. The idea behind these locations, our primary focus is on finding bump out locations that have the maximum amount of water draining to those locations. The higher amount of drainage area equals the higher amount of PRP credits that we'd be able to get for these locations. And if you remember, the PRP credits is part of the borough's PRP plan that's been implemented for the past few years now. We have one alternative location, which we don't believe we're going to need, but just in case we find that there's any unforeseen utilities underneath where we want to put these bump outs, or some other event that prevents us from doing one of them. We have an alternate location on North Narberth Ave, close to the intersection of Windsor Ave. So those are the locations. We've already done 4, as you guys probably know, kind of along Windsor Ave at various intersections. They've gotten great feedback. I still hear people talk positively about them to this day. And I know Jeff and his crew are doing a great job at pulling hundreds of pounds of sediment out of them every year and maintaining the landscaping within them. So they're a very positive positive project, throughout the borough, and, we're excited to implement some more for 2025.
And just to expand a little more on the PRP, so this is a requirement that the state of Pennsylvania is asking all communities to reduce their sediment in their stormwater. So we were required to submit a plan, we are required to reduce the runoff, and we determined that these bump outs are the most appropriate way we were able to come up with to handle most of the sediment reduction. I mean, there are other projects in the pipeline, but they're certainly the most visible and the most attractive when they're flowering. Okay, and this came before infrastructure?
We're not these four specific locations.
Okay.
But, it will come back to us, and we also want to get the word out to the people that live on these blocks that this is what we've chosen. Could you just summarize if any of these blocks have existing parking issues to the point where, the people would feel as though, we were taking away
Not that I know of.
precious parking space?
When I went out to do some initial investigation, it did seem like that there was a pretty decent amount of parking on Grayling, but there was still plenty of parking like up near the cul-de-sac. So I don't foresee the parking being an issue. We'd only be taking up about 2 spots per bump out is the idea.
But that's Grayling, but how about the others?
So that would be on Conway at Stewart and Dudley at Stewart, and when I was out there, this was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday, and there weren't too many cars. Obviously, I guess there's probably more cars, at the end of the day. But it seemed like there was still plenty of parking, in and around, where these bump outs would be going in.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but since I live on Conway and I pass Conway and Stewart all the time, the lots on the one side of the street are actually through lots to Narbrook Park. So unlike a lot of other streets where you're having like the frontages, those are all basically the back area. So I've kind of noticed that they're, in my kind of like lived experience, I don't notice that area being parked up all the time. Again, I don't want to speak for anyone else if folks want to come in and have a different perspective on that, but I've kind of noticed that just because of the configuration of that particular block.
It's no Iona.
It's no Iona, my where I grew up.
Yeah. I will say, if it's the spot that I'm thinking of on Grayling, that intersection, not only does it flood, but it shoots out of the sewer, Jeff. I mean, that's a really problematic area, so I'm appreciative that clearly you identified that because of floods.
Yeah, those two on Grayling had very high drainage areas,
Yeah.
and hopefully, we'll get the maximum amount of price for those. Yeah.
It looks like none of those are currently in regulated parking areas with the 2-hour parking zones. It depends on which side of Stewart you're looking at on Dudley, but Conway and Stewart is not, and the 200 block of Grayling is not, so seemingly.
The other thing worth mentioning about, I think, is the Grayling spaces is that that's called a low-volume road at Grayling, and there is still grant money available for low-volume roads. Jeff actually, did this on another project on Woodside and Rockland recently, and was able to get funding for that because so the Grayling spots not only like spurt water, but they're also low volume roads. So I mean, it's a good.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, Jeff is pursuing just pursuing this low volume grant for the 2 bump outs on Grayling.
And that is state money.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I mean, we did get funding for the initial set of bump outs. That was sort of our pilot. I don't know what the what the likelihood is of getting further funding for more of these bump outs, or what the.
Well, yeah, but this low volume road is like it's
its own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
not.
We
had success getting in the past. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a walkthrough with the folks who control that grant funding from the Monco Conservation District, March 11th. So we're going to look at the 200 block of Grayling and also the dead end of Elmwood. You know, to kind of tie in a larger scale project for when we replace that pedestrian bridge there.
Yeah.
You know, what sort of water collection, filtration unit can we do before it dumps directly into the creek bank there?
Getting into our master plan. But yeah, it sounds great. All right, so we will be notifying the effect, like the residents whose houses are right there before we approve this, before council approves the final spots.
Yes, so the plan here, let me see if I can pull up my kind of calendar. So to move forward with this, this will then next go back before the infrastructure committee in the March meeting for the initial presentation of the survey results. We expect the drafting and design to take 30 to 60 days, beginning around the end of March through May. So then in April, the April 22nd infrastructure committee, at that point we'll have more information about the design and specifically the neighbors that it will most impact. So we'll be notifying them to attend that meeting. That will be kind of the first real opportunity to have something in place to show them and get their feedback. So the plan was to notify neighbors well ahead of the April 22nd infrastructure committee. And then May, we project that it will be before the infrastructure committee to present on the design. And then in June, it will come before council for authorization to let the bid documents. And we anticipate awarding the contract by the August business meeting for construction in September.
Just wondering if it makes sense to let the neighbors know before we spend the money on the design. But if we don't know exactly who's going to, we don't know exactly where it's going to be. Is that the issue? Okay.
We know where they're going to be, yes.
You know what block, but you don't know, you don't have a picture to show them.
We can get pictures. We have the locations nailed down.
I mean, does it make sense to let people know before that March meeting?
I think it's important to underscore though that we are following a professional engineer's recommendation of where it's needed to best capture the water. So it's not really a conversation other than, there's a handicap accessibility issue on this because it is the road in the right of way. So in other words, it's not helpful to say, I park my car here and I really don't want the storm water.
I would agree that's unlikely to change council's plans if we get that kind of response, but we still have to let people know.
Well,
I 100%.
It's better to hear if there's any sort of
you have to tell us
disability issue.
Yeah, absolutely, but I'm trying to manage expectations of folks that they're not coming and saying, I prefer it 3 spots to the left.
Yeah.
Unless there is a compelling reason, such as an ADA issue, that we of course always follow the recommendation of the professional staff.
Right,
That's all.
and it bears repeating, because you said this at the top, right? But like these were selected because we're maximizing the amount of PRP credits that we can get, which is critical to our ability to demonstrate to the state that we're making progress on something that we're already going to be passing the actual deadline that they gave us, and we're able to continue because we're demonstrating progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those bump outs on Dudley and Conway, are they on Dudley and Conway or are they on Stewart?
They're on Dudley and Conway.
Okay.
At the intersections.
So it would affect those residents.
Yes.
All right. Any other comments or questions? I guess we can stick with the original timing. I don't know. If there's any chance we're going to change the plan, it would be worth it to do it before we spend money on the planning. But it sounds like we're pretty confident in these locations. So.
If we have the locations, we can notify those residents ahead of time. When we were initially drafting this timeline, we weren't sure if we would have that specific information by March. But if that's the case, then we could always bump up the notice ahead of time to provide for additional feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I just think as soon as we know where we'd like to put them, that's when we notify the people so that are aware and can be present at the meeting where it's being discussed. Just be, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
All right, anything else on the stormwater bump outs? Okay, thanks. It's good to continue to make progress on this. As you say, Michael, we gotta show the state that we are still chugging along on our reductions in sediment. And I should point out that our rules for new construction also mean that as new projects happen in the borough, they are required to capture the stormwater runoff. So they also help us with this, with these requirements. Okay. Consideration items. 10A is Parks and Rec.
I move that Borough Council approve the Parks and Recreation 2025 event program as detailed in the memo dated February 13th, 2025, received from the Parks and Recreation Board.
Second.
Okay. Is there someone from Parks and Recreation to come in front of us, or are we working from the memo? Okay. Let me just say, I definitely, this is an initiative that's coming from the Parks and Recreation Board. It was their idea, and they're I'm very glad to have them stepping up and interested in creating some new events and new excitement in our parks. So I'm pleased that this is on our agenda. You want to get a summary of the proposals?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's just scroll to the page. Okay, so this was a memo that was prepared by the Parks and Rec Board to request a couple of events in 2025. So the first was a family movie night. So this would be held in Borough Park, like an inflatable screen with a speaker system. So the request for this one was to show a movie, TBD on the actual movie, and have that available for viewing, either for free or, let me just see, for donations from attendees. They're also potentially seeking local businesses who might want to serve food during that event. So this appears to just be a one-time event. Parks and Rec is requesting some funding from the borough between $1,500 and $2,000. If the Parks and Rec Committee is unable to get the cost reduced. So that's a not set firm ask for cost, but potentially. The other event is a food truck festival. There is no cost to the borough for this one. Parks and Rec is suggesting that they will seek vendors who want to partner with them and looking for things like pizza, taco, cheesesteak, smoothie, and ice cream truck. And a DJ to play music. And this one, looking to also see if somebody would be able to provide alcohol pending all proper approvals and authorizations. And this one is looking to be set up in, do they say this here?
September 20th.
It's in the intro.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, September 20th at Sabine Park. And then the third would be environmental talks at Elm Grove Park. So these would be dates TBD, but educational sessions focusing on environmental issues. And this would be volunteers who would come and provide educational talks based on speakers and organizations available to volunteer their time. And they're looking to approach Narberth Co-op Gardens, Narberth Shade Tree, and Lower Merion Conservancy as potential partners. So that would be potentially a recurring events as those can be scheduled at Elm Grove. Anticipated attendance, 200 to 300 attendees for the family movie night is what they're looking at, and potentially 800 to 1,000 attendees for the food truck festival, These were numbers based on consulting with a local marketing professional and speaking with some other organizations that host similar events. And they would be seeking marketing professionals who assist nonprofits with community events for things like logistics, vendor procurement, and promotion. So those are the main things. So recurring educational events at Elm Grove, a food truck festival at Sabine Park on, thank you, September 20th. And then the family movie night, I'm sorry, this would be Saturday, April 26th is their target date for that. I will note, I believe that is the same date as the Narberth Run event, which is scheduled for that morning, so then this would be that evening. And they did suggest that they wanted to kind of double book it so that they could have some advertisement during the run, and then folks could come back in the evening for a relaxing family fun night.
Does that stretch John, does that stretch police or public works to have two?
I don't think finish.
Not worried about riots at the family movie night?
Movie night?
Whatever, okay.
Ira?
Well, but so, I mean, for the two, the movie night and the food truck festival, I mean, they're one's asking for some money.
Potentially, right.
Correct, but the other
Potentially.
for no money, but don't we have costs associated, you know, with the cleanup and the policing of those events as well?
Yes.
We just absorb that.
That's why they're asking.
The
We'd be
in-kind.
absorbing the in-kind. you
It
know,
would be
as well
in-kind,
as-
yeah, in-kind services, so we would obviously need to coordinate with our department heads for those logistics. But yes, that would be in-kind services provided by the borough.
I mean, they also mentioned that any profits from the movie night and the food truck festival would cover overtime for Public Works, and then to Friends of Narberth Park for nonprofit.
Which is probably Fongie, because I don't think there is a Friends of Narberth Park.
Friends of,
Yeah.
right.
We should probably ask that the funds go to fungi, or fungi, because there isn't actually Friends of Narberth Park, but fungi.
Oh, is there? Okay.
I don't,
Well, yeah, except that the food truck festival is at Sabine Park.
Right, so
perhaps they
probably
meant
makes-
Friends of Sabine Park. We usually
Oh,
clarify
okay.
what they
That's not
meant.
what it says here.
Fongie
Yeah,
Fongie
Fongie says.
covers
Well,
all of
I
our
know.
books. so I think
exactly.
It would be a
That's-
logical.
I thought,
Well,
Okay.
that is a borough kind
Well,
of.
let's suggest that. Sounds good. What do people think about the general concept? Anybody have concerns with the?
I think this is great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And I think it really aligns with what we talked about in the Master Parks Plan about activating our parks and creating those community engagement events. So,
I thought there was an ask for some large kind of yard games and stuff that was coming in on this too. Like the giant, help me.
like a library.
Yeah, I thought that
That's-
was coming in as part of this ask, no?
Not as an event, but.
No, but as funds.
I think this is just about the
Okay,
events.
okay.
and the other thing,
So
not
that's
to,
coming.
not to, you know, be pessimistic about it, but they probably should both have rain dates or
Have rain dates.
say that they're not gonna have a rain date. Just because they could conflict with something else.
I'll add that 800 to 1,000 is ambitious for a food truck festival. I don't know if, I mean, that might be the high-end estimate.
Maybe that's over the course of the whole day or something.
I would be impressed. I mean, I'll be there. But
Invite everyone.
Yeah.
It is a 4-hour food truck event, 4 to 8 p.m. is what they are targeting.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, the park can handle it, but, you know.
Thank you to the board for helping to organize and plan these events.
Yeah.
I think whatever we can do to support these
Okay.
events.
Well, what we can do, so go ahead.
Oh, we're just gonna ask, so in the event that we end up covering some of these costs, what part of the budget would it come out of?
Right, so I did look into that a little bit. We will have to find a line item that this applies to. I know that we had talked about, there's like a special events under the Public Works that we could look at to see. It seems a nominal cost that we could find the money if we needed to. So if that's something that council would support, if we needed to cover any upfront costs beyond the in-kind services, we have some flexibility in our budget to be able to counter the, $1,000 to $2,000 that they're asking.
Okay.
The quote that I got this morning from the film company that would host the day or the evening film is $1,555. So that could most likely live within our recreation and special events budget.
All right.
Without taking anything away from our other events.
Okay, looks like council is in favor of moving forward with this, so go ahead and make whatever budget adjustments are necessary. If we need to do something formal, we can put that on the agenda for next month. And I look forward to hearing more about these, and I'll be there.
Great, pass the message along and we will help with these organized.
Yeah, and thanks again to the Parks and Recreation Board for taking the initiative on this. It's great.
Do we need to vote? Do we vote on it?
Do we have, is there an actual item that we are, what was the, what's
Well,
the?
it's
It's a
a
consideration.
consideration item.
Okay,
We haven't motioned and seconded.
we do have a motion, well, the motion in a second could be for discussion. Let me find the
Right,
actual item.
so we need to vote.
Right.
Let me find it.
It's on page 25.
Thank you. All right, so we are voting to approve the Parks and Recreation 2025 event program as discussed. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. 10B, Master Parks Plan.
I move that Borough Council adopt Resolution 2025-03 to approve the Narberth Master Parks Plan and close out the Community Conservation Partnership Grant Project number BRC tag 28.6-17.
Second.
Okay. Pretty pictures. All right.
Mike, can you confirm that you can see this on Zoom?
No, I'm seeing all of you still.
Let me try. Does it share
Yeah.
when it's in full?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Share screen.
I mean, I see it behind you on the screen, but it's not coming up on Zoom.
Yeah, if you could share, it should be.
That's what I did.
There we go. There we go.
It's up.
It's coming up now. There we go.
If I go for the full screen, will you see that then?
Can you see it
Yeah.
now?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, who's going to lead us?
If you guys are ready for me to lead, I can lead.
I believe so. Looks like we're set up.
So we can go ahead to the next slide. So we are at the end of the master plan process for the park study. We started last April. Most recently, we presented the draft plan to you back in December and then had an open public comment period through January, and then coordinated with borough staff, committee heads, and the liaisons from the board on final revisions to that plan. So what we shared with you in your packets last week is the final plan. If we go next, we did have 64 responses from the feedback form of the draft plan from the public. They were very much in keeping with the level of comments we heard throughout the process. A lot of excitement about the skate park, some excitement about pickleball, maybe some concerns about pickleball. So very much in keeping with what we've heard throughout the whole process, and kind of supported the consensus of the draft plan with a few revisions that we had discussed back in December. So we'll just quickly kind of go over high level or magnitude the revisions that we made to the final plans. Station Square, Again, we we maintained the existing traffic patterns along Haverford Ave to be one-way into town. With that, you also changed the direction of the access road to the back of the Haverford development there. So that would be one-way in with angled parking being maintained to help offset some of the loss of the parking from the greater circle. But still kind of showing the concept of a plaza with your ward off going across to join the full scope of Haverford Ave on both frontages of buildings and then our stage and performance area. So for the most part, it is very much the same concept. We are noting that, you know, this is a vision and that it does require more study as you move through into engineering and funding kind of strategies for the plan. Going next to Elm Grove, this plan had a lot of consensus throughout the whole process, even at the concept level.
Sorry,
It's okay.
very slow.
There, yeah. So there are no changes from the master plan to the final plan here. Again, this is kind of in fitting with the programs that are being proposed here, a very kind of passive park geared at nature-based play, gathering area with an open lawn, and then some opportunities to interpret the stream habitat through a boardwalk and observation area. And then also, I think one of the key things that came out of the committee was with the pedestrian bridge, when that goes to get rebuilt, looking at the end of Elmwood, as we talked about today, in terms of how we can better control stormwater, and then also maybe shifting the bridge up a little bit north so that it aligns more with the existing sidewalk and gets people right into the park. Narberth Park, again, the main change that we're seeing here is maintaining the existing traffic patterns in and around the park. We are still looking at improved crosswalks, so those configurations of those change slightly with the final plan to adjust to the existing traffic patterns. Again, with this plan, you know, one of the things that we want to keep in mind is as you look at Sabine, you know, you want to leave some flexibility in this plan. So we do have a caveat in this plan where we're looking at V, T, and S, which is your skate plaza, pickleball courts, and then the kind of free play multi-court basketball area for pickup games, that area kind of be thought of being a flexible space in terms of how it gets developed moving forward. You know, all these plans are a very long-term plan in terms of the life, but it kind of gives you a guide to follow. So that's kind of where we are with that. We can go just next, we kind of zoom in. So yes, that's kind of that court area where here it's I, H, and J. So there's a lot of flexibility in that space, allowing it to evolve as the borough kind of identifies other potential areas within the borough. But again, the playground, the relationship between the playground, pavilion, library, restrooms, all kinds of remains the same as in the draft plan. We can go next. This end, really no changes here. I will, since this is kind of a blow up, down at number A, where we have the intersection of Haverford and Winford, you will see to kind of maintain those 2 lanes to turn out onto Wynwood Ave. We are in kind of shortening that crosswalk there, really defining a crosswalk. That's an area where we really think it warrants some, you know, looking at closely with your engineers to kind of configure a trail coming in from the Maybach area and then down Haverford Ave. So there's that, and then you do kind of lose the potential, you lose a little parking there from the draft plan, but still plenty of parking being accommodated along there. And then the other 2 connection areas, B at Windsor Ave, we still recommend the bump outs there. This was an area where a lot of people had concern about safety of families crossing into the playground area. So we still are maintaining bump outs there, but maintaining enough of a width that you do have adjacent passing width for two lanes there, since this would maintain as a 2-way road as opposed to the draft plan looking at a 1-way here. With that 2-way, it does kind of create what we call a chicane with the parking. because the parking shifts from the north side to the south side as you go through that tabled area. So you kind of, that will naturally slow traffic down as they kind of have to maneuver a neighborhood road with on-street parking and kind of passing through those bump outs. So we did just maintain the cost here. I will say we shared with the borough the full spreadsheet. It's at this order of magnitude. We were challenged with how to kind of look at the phasing. So we do make kind of large-scale phasing recommendations in the plan, very similar to the draft plan. But the spreadsheet we shared gives the borough staff the ability to adjust phases by kind of pull-down menu and look at things on a much smaller scale. I mean, these are very large numbers. They're broken down into individual items with supporting backup so that they see where all the costs come, and they can look at kind of those small level priority projects that they might implement early on. But due to the number of small projects, it's really not possible for us to identify what those would be a priority for you guys. I think, we still think the playground would be a priority project within Narberth Park due to the age and the condition that it's in. But again, that's not a small project. That's, a significant project where you would want to pursue funding for it. So that is where we're at.
All right. Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge all the Narberth residents who've been involved in the master park planning process. Everybody who's come to meetings, everybody who's provided feedback on surveys or feedback to the draft plan. It's great to hear from the community on these topics, and we appreciate the attention and hearing from everybody. So, comments from council on the draft plan? Just go around the table here, or everybody? Jean, start.
I just want to say I'm really excited about the plan. I think it is going to be a really helpful guide for the borough to make prioritization decisions in managing our parks and investing in them. So, and also I really enjoyed hearing the community feedback. It really was informative, and we learned a lot through that process. And I also want to give a special thanks to Alan Gazzardo for coordinating this project. And special thanks to Rebecca Moore as the chair of the study committee, and to Michael Galdini. They both kind of went above and beyond to make sure that we captured the voices of the community and the needs, and balancing a lot of different viewpoints in a very small acreage that we have, and trying to balance those needs. And it was challenging, but I think it was a rewarding process. But yeah, and just to echo what Fred said, thank you to the community for providing their feedback and adding their voice into this plan.
I want to echo all of the thanks that Jean just gave, and also to thank Jean for all of the hard work that she put into this process. And I know that I was on planning commission at the time when I joined the study group, and you were the council kind of appointee to that body. So I know that was, and those were turbulent times. So you had to deal with a lot during that period of time. And also thank you to our consultant team as well, who had the really the tough task of having to deal with us and everyone. And yeah, I think it's exciting. I mean, it's just there was so much conversation, I think, and obviously it's a vision plan, right? So obviously it's a high level document, and we took a long way to get to this point. But I kind of see this as a starting point. This is a starting point where we can take that vision, start to break it down into its constituent pieces, and look at the way that we can practically fund it in a Narberth way, in a way where we can actually turn it into deliverables that folks can see manifest in their community, and that can actually, make their lives better on a day-to-day basis. I know that Public Works, for instance, is going to be repairing the sidewalks generally. That's kind of part of the ongoing sidewalk plan. So there's, a lot of, I think there's a lot of exciting things ahead. So this is, I think, is a starting point. And then from here on out, it gets more in the weeds and kind of brought down to the scale of municipality that we are.
You're like perfectly teaming up with me.
I know.
I've voiced concerns about this actually since we voted it in, and this was something that now 3 managers had kind of inherited when this plan process started. Samantha was here and she said, I will get it funded, I will get it funded. And I am not going to rehash all the thank yous. If we had $5.3 million and double the staff, I would be completely excited about this plan, but we don't have an extra $5.5 million or double the staff. So I really had kind of asked for this to be scaled to Narberth of what truly can be done and identified by Public Works or in $10,000 chunks that we could phase into the capital plan. So I do feel disingenuous voting for something that I really don't believe that we have the funds or the capability to execute. Although it's a lovely dream, I mean, it is a fabulous vision document, but I kind of equate it to doing a home kitchen remodeling and say, like, the sky's the limit. None of us would approach a big project like that. We would do it within the scope of our budget. We simply don't have the staff or the resources to aggressively pursue these grants. So I was much more excited about a scaled kind of Narberth version. I will side note, though, I am also very hesitant to vote for anything that takes away parking from Station Circle until we see the implications of half of a back public parking lot and 35-ish apartment dwellings yet. I mean, the businesses were very clear that it is critical to have that kind of quick, I'm going to pick someone up for the train, hop into the cheese shop, buy dog, whatever that is. So I know we're not breaking down the plans, but that I would just really caution us to really be iterative in our evaluation of the massive remodeling that's about to happen downtown. So, and thank you to all. I mean, you two, the amount of work you did goes unseen behind this, and I vote for you two. But have concerns about the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I share your concerns, but I don't have a problem with the document as a blueprint, for the future. So, I mean, we're not approving funding this evening. I'm just clarifying, right?
We are not approving any changes directly to any of these sites. We are approving this plan. That is what's on the agenda tonight.
Right,
but that
so-
does not bind us to any particular schedule, any particular changes.
So sometimes it's helpful to have the vision, so as you do a smaller project, and I think, Jeff has in mind some smaller things that could be done in the meantime, at least you have some sense of what the end goal is, so you don't do something in the short term that is completely inconsistent with this plan.
Right. So that's the thing, when I was thinking about, because I think the kind of remodel, kind of examples, a good example. I don't see it as the kitchen remodel, right? Like when I bought my house, bought the entire house, I knew that there was going to be work that I was doing it over the course of, not the next 5 years, but the course of my lifetime. Kitchen remodel might be the first thing, but I kind of need to know where I'm going with the rest of the house, even if a lot of that's a long way off. And so that's the way I've kind of thought about it. It's not as this is not the kitchen remodel, what's my budget?
Yeah,
but
it's the house.
The broader vision. We'll get to the kitchen next.
Yes, although it's interesting, because when this first came up, it was Melissa O'Connor said, the park should think about pickleball. And I had to Google it, because I had no idea. Truly, but I'm just saying.
And then you go down the rabbit hole.
When you have a 10 or 20-year visionary project, things could change, is my point. 6 years ago, I had never heard of pickleball. Now it's in high demand.
By the time we can afford to do this, it may be out again.
That's
Right.
my point. Yeah.
I want to give everybody a chance to speak. So,
Disagree with you.
Andrea?
Without repeating what others have said, I tend to share a lot of Cindy's thoughts on the matter. And it's a great idea to have an overall big picture, and I do. And with the Elm Grove Park and the Narberth Park, there was nothing in there that I had a problem with. I think thinking of things in the future, flying bungees. Could be the next thing, the next great thing that people are looking for. It could be something we're not even thinking of. But having somewhat of a vision is great. I do share some of the same concerns, having a store downtown and knowing the concerns of many of the small shop owners. I share some of the concerns about losing parking. So to the extent that, it's not a definite thing, but I think it's something really that I wish councils now and in the future really think about, the needs of the downtown. Because one of the greatest things about Narberth is it's having a thriving downtown. It's a thing that most, people in the borough love the most. And I think you really need to listen to those store owners and the people who are living the experience of what they need to keep their businesses in the borough. So I would caution any council now or in the future to keep in mind, needs of those shop owners, because they're the ones in the lived experience. And I would not be fast to dismiss their opinions. But as a general, idea, it's great, but we're gonna have to be flexible here, with any monies that come up.
Jim?
I'm very excited about this plan. I'm comfortable supporting it. I hear their concerns too. I'm comfortable supporting it because it's a master planning document. It surfaces a lot of ideas. It's not an implementation plan. It's not a funding plan. These things aren't about to happen. It will be implemented piecemeal over a number of years, and they'll have their own considerations when they come up. And I look forward to that. Not to kick the concerns down the road, but I think it's really important to have a visioning like this and to have gone through the process that was so public and so iterative and so consensus-based. And I attended a lot of those meetings, and the way Rebecca Moore ran those was just, they were such well-run meetings. I was just very impressed by the amount of information they distilled and ran and debated and came to consensus over. I know a lot of these are also aspirational. For instance, the directions of Windsor and Haverford Ave, I happen to really like that idea. That's another thing. I know it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's just, it's a master planning, it's a visioning idea, and it will have to have its own consideration process if it happens in the future, like everything else in this. So I just want to say how much I appreciate the process, how much everyone worked on it, and the result is great and is detailed, and it's support it.
All right. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tread the same water, but I guess I feel a little less concerned than Cindy in terms of, I view this as both an aspirational document and, more importantly, a reflection of the community's aspirations, not our aspirations. This was I think, a model of community engagement that we should be doing more of when we have those opportunities that present themselves. And so I view this as, this is what the community would love if we won the lottery, right? This is kind of what, that's what we're looking at. I also look at it as something that integrates with our long-range planning that Matt was so good about making us prioritize and think about. And I look at this document as, I guess, to take Mike's analogy, this is the whole house renovation. What do I really want to fix? What do I really need to fix first? This, I think, helps us focus that. What needs to be done? What's within our whatever cost considerations that are going to face us in the future? I absolutely share the mayor and Cindy's view about, I share the same concern about Station Circle. I'm not convinced that that's going to be appropriate, but I also think that that can't really be figured out until the construction on Haverford is completed, and we really, that's going to be a different world. And we talked at one point about deferring the parks plan until seeing how that all worked out. Chicken and the egg, one had to happen first. So I think we recognize that, I think everybody on council recognizes that that is a potential piece that may not ultimately come to pass because it ends up not being appropriate based on what happens in the future.
All right. I just want to refer to an earlier discussion we had about the footbridge on Elmwood, and originally the borough looked at this a few years ago when we realized that the footbridge was in poor condition. We planned to replace it, and we realized that the retaining wall was also in poor condition. And then we realized, well, it might make sense to look at this as part of the master park plan. So I think we have a better project as a result of the master park plan process. We've identified, well, what if we move the footbridge a little over here? What if we work with this grant program for low volume streets? What if we also work in stormwater? So that's just one project that the borough kind of had in mind that I think is going to be significantly improved and a better target for grant money than it would have been had we not gone through this exercise. So I think there will be any number of other projects coming down the pike that are going to be improved by the amount of thought and the amount of planning that have gone in, and the clear community support for them. We can point to community interest in a lot of projects that we'll be doing in the future, and this park plan will help us making our case to grant authorities, and it'll also better reflect what the community wants to see in the parks. So looking forward to it, and I do appreciate all the time and effort that everybody has put into making this happen. Any further comments or discussion?
The only further thing, shame on me, I forgot to thank Jeff for all of his hard work on this, and also helping resolve some of the conflicts that came up with the study committee. Jeff did just a stellar job throughout, and we were giving a lot of thank yous, and I looked over and I realized that we...
The star.
So save the best for last.
Exactly. My only last comment is, I am the pragmatist, that's for sure, and I just hope that this planning document doesn't paralyze us. As one neighbor said, can't we just make what we have nice? And what again, back to Jeff, 5 years ago, he presented fabulous plans of pedestriarizing what we have in Station Circle, and everyone said, oh no, we're gonna do a master park plan, oh no, we're gonna do a master park plan. And I think, oh gosh, for $12,000, we could have been enjoying over the last 4 or 5 years this fabulous Station Circle, but we get paralyzed with these plans, and I hope that doesn't happen. Waiting for the next big grant or whatnot. I hope that we can continue to then just say, no, we're actually going to do what we can afford in the CIP to make our parks nicer and more user-friendly.
And that'll be a discussion for later this year, is incorporating changes into the capital improvement plan for the next few years, figuring out what our...
Like pragmatic.
What we're going to be able to accomplish over the
do.
next few years. So that'll be a topic for later on, next few months. Expect that'll be coming to infrastructure and then to council as we have time for it. Okay, so what we're voting on today is approval of the Master Parks Plan and closing out the Conservation Partnership Grant that we were offered that paid for a lot of the process. So all those in favor of approving the Master Parks Plan and closing out the grant? Okay, opposed?
Can I vote yes to the process, no to the plan? No.
It's all one thing.
I'm saying that for the record, but no, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, so it is 6-1. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Sorry, it's okay.
Go Gotta vote your conscience. Don't
Yeah,
apologize.
it's borough process.
All right, we have some subdivision plans.
I move that Borough Council adopt Resolution 2025-04 to approve the preliminary final subdivision plan for 425, 427 Grove Place with the waiver of request waiver.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Walker.
I'm happy to discuss. This is a subdivision plan for council's consideration for the existing property, which is at 425 Grove Place. Apparently, it used to be two properties, 425 and 427 Grove Place. And I believe this plan just proposes to put it back the way it was, which would result in a subdivision line going through the middle of the current existing property and then separating that into two different attached dwellings. No construction is proposed. Out on the outside, they will be making it into two separate dwellings on the inside. The waiver is related, and this is related to the next plan on the agenda as well, for a waiver to not offer dedication required right-of-way along the property's frontage. In consultation with the borough engineer, I believe that is an appropriate waiver. Nobody else along this road has that right-of-way, so it would kind of stick out if ever needed. And it is such a minor subdivision, it would result in probably a hardship related to the properties. So that staff didn't have any problem if council so decided to grant that waiver. Not to answer any questions related to it.
So yeah, we will also have to vote on the waiver. Obviously, they have one waiver request, which is to, as our solicitor described, about the ultimate right-of-way. So we need to decide that as well as the preliminary. Oh, the other waiver was to have a final plan, right? It was to have it serve as both the preliminary
I'm
and
not
final
sure that's
plan.
related. You need that one for this one because it's just a minor subdivision.
Okay, so we don't need to
So
make
it's
that.
really just the
Okay,
one
just the
waiver
one waiver.
that was requested. And I believe the motion did include it for approval with the waiver that Mr. Whiting made. So,
Okay.
I mean, if someone wanted to take that out from the motion, there would need to be an amended motion.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any comments?
I just got a couple, just not any questions or anything, but it was interesting when I saw that come up. First of all, I'm glad that they're going to be kind of converting that back into the original 2 units that were there. It was interesting because I was aware of this property from doing some research of Narberth history a long time ago. And just because we talk about housing a lot, I wanted to flag how kind of policy decisions made decades ago kind of still affect the housing stock that you have available today. So this was actually originally back in the 1940s. It was immediate post-war, and it was initially, the builder came in wanting to do 4 more modest units of veteran housing for veterans returning from the war. And my understanding from the coverage of it at the time was that the Borough kind of had them put that down from 4 to 2. So they became kind of like 2 still attached, but a bit kind of like slightly larger units. So I just wanted to note that because we talk kind of about how, housing policies can affect us generally. And when I saw this come through, I thought, oh, I've actually read about this building and I know why it's 2 and rather than anything else. So, and so, just as we continue on thinking about housing policies, I just wanted to flag that as a little item of interest.
I just want to, I want to highlight in the county letter from about, because I just had a conversation earlier today with somebody from the township about the possibility of putting in the pedestrian bridge for Rockland Avenue. So I think that's still very much a possibility, and I just want to, make sure that we're not preventing that from happening.
Is the applicant here, or somebody representing the applicant here in the room? Okay.
Yeah, they're online. Yeah.
They're online? Well, so the county had suggested that they might agree not to do any landscaping or do any changes that would affect the possibility of the bridge being restored. So I'm just wondering what the reaction, if they had a response to that suggestion from the county.
Yes, hi, my name's Chris Yon. I'm the civil engineer for the project, and Pat Pasquarello is here as well, the applicant. We didn't have a problem with any of the review comments, including that one. I think it just asked that we avoid planning in the right of way, and so that's fine.
I mean, I think several council members are intrigued by the possibility of restoring that bridge, so, we would not want to do anything that would make it more difficult, should that happen down the long run. Okay. Any other questions or comments about the subdivision plan?
Well, what's the purpose of this, so they can be owned by two different people, or?
Correct, each side of the house would be able to be sold and divided, so each still be a parcel.
So right now, it's owned by one, must be owned by one person?
Correct, so this will result in two separate parcels that could be transferred.
But there wouldn't be physical changes.
Right, because it's already, you're saying it's already a twin.
It would just,
It was a twin. It was, the lot line was eliminated
Right.
and now it's being reestablished.
Right, but I mean, is it a twin now, or they would have to do construction to make it a twin?
No, they do have to do construction, so
That's
after.
right. On the inside.
On the inside.
Yeah. If
My
it's two
understanding is that
distinct
it was a twin, and basically they cut a hole through the party wall so that they could get through to both sides, and so by closing that up, that basically puts it right back to the twin setup.
okay.
So there'd be a fire separation, presumably they'd have to restore fire separation, right?
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, let us vote on resolution 2024-04 to approve the preliminary and final subdivision plan for 425, 427 Grove Place and the waiver of the right-of-way changes. All those in favor? Okay, it is unanimous. All right. Okay. Let's go on to 10D, which is another minor change.
I move that Borough Council adopt Resolution 2025-05 to approve the lot line adjustment plan for 10 Sabine 243 North Winwood Avenue with requesting waivers.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
Okay, so this is a lot line change, so this is a subdivision where there's not any new lots being created, but there's two lots. And what it's proposing is to take approximately 5,972 square feet from the rear of 243 North Winwood Avenue, give it to 10 Sabine Avenue, and thereby drawing that line to make 243 a little bit smaller, 10 Sabine a little bit bigger. So that's why you call it, it's a minor subdivision. There are two waivers proposed. One of them is just simply related to not providing photographs of the neighborhood block, aerial photographs with 200 feet surrounding the property. That was recommended by staff to be granted because it is just a moving of a lot line. And the second is the same way, same waiver related to the dedication of the right-of-way along the property's frontage. And again, checking with the borough engineer, the streets again, that would be a unique right-of-way. So they did not see a practical reason why that needed to be done, particularly based upon the small level of the subdivision. So the applicant is represented. Would you like to give your name, Council, just to acknowledge yourself?
Sure. Good evening. William Dion with the law firm of Silver and Moses and Holtzman. Here tonight, excuse me, representing Ken Brasco and Casey Humberg, who are the owners of 10 Sabine Avenue. I also, the Timothy and Holly Manzoni are here, who are the owners of 243 North Winwood Avenue. And as your solicitor said, the long and short of it is the neighbors have had an informal agreement for the use of it. The property on 23 North Winwood Avenue is very deep, almost 400 feet deep. But the property on Sabine Avenue is very short and narrow, to the point where the property line is almost 15 feet off the back of the house. So they've used the property for years. They came to an agreement to purchase it, and obviously that leads into the subdivision. And this will create a nicer yard for 10 Sabine Avenue while not really taking much away from the 243 North Winwood. It complies with all the zoning requirements, and actually even kind of balances it because it makes them come into better compliance with the impervious coverage. 10 Sabine Road was very close to its limit, so it will make for a nice utilization of some dead area in the back of it, and the neighbors are glad to do it. So we have the review letters. They were straightforward. Planning Commission was in favor, and we hope you're inclined to approve it and we can effectuate the transfer.
Thank you. Any questions? Myra?
Could someone explain this paragraph about the split zoning?
Oh, yeah, it's in, so because they're on like the edge, I was actually about to kind of flag that as well. They're on the edge of where the 3B transitions to 3A.
Yeah.
So the one property, I believe that's transferring it is in 3A, and then the other property is in 3B. So it'll be split zone, which is a condition that doesn't affect, that doesn't affect the transfer, but it is something flagged that if, I guess, y'all wanted to just, the property that's receiving the back area, if you just wanted to have one zoning district, that's something I guess that we could do a zoning amendment to resolve that.
It isn't something we can impose as a condition, for example. It's up
Right, yeah.
to you to redraw the line. It obviously doesn't have a practical use. You're not going to take advantage of a different zoning district for these two units.
Well, if they were, if the impervious might be different, so, you know, the rules for, if you're just leaving it as green space, there's no effect.
Impervious is currently,
Yeah, but the structure itself, I believe, is not split zone. I mean,
it's correct, the structure is entirely in the one zoning district. This will be just an open grass area that's in the other district.
Right, so I believe it would be the board of structures usually, unless the code is interpreted differently, would be what would apply in this situation.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's nothing that would affect y'all today, it's just something to be aware of. If in the future you wanted to.
All right, Jim wants
So
to.
impervious wouldn't be effective because it's a straight 60% coverage in any,
Everywhere.
in any, I believe, right? Isn't it?
Well, maybe, I guess I'm wrong.
Okay, anyway, but I know the building coverage would be affected, and I wonder, how do we determine the max building coverage in a split lot like that? Do you know?
I think it would, if I remember correctly, I believe you would have to kind of, the property would be split, you know, half, some portion of it would be 3A, some portion of it would be 3B. So within that 3A portion, you would have to follow the building, and different
So-
within that section.
Well,
And then in the 3B section.
that's
Okay,
tough.
I'm sorry I went down this road, but I mean, if they ever want to change what they put on the property, then they'll have to, they can.
Correct.
Yeah,
There's
so if you want to
no
put a
there
shed or
to do
something
that.
on there, it might be complicated, that's what we're saying.
It would just
Okay.
follow, if they wanted to put any sort of accessory structure or other improvement within the 3B district, the newly acquired portion, they would just have to meet the impervious cover setbacks and other limitations that are applicable to the 3B section. If they were to try to put, say, a housing addition, like if they were to do an addition that would extend beyond that, that would get a little bit trickier, but if we're just looking at accessory structures within the newly acquired rear portion of the lot, it would just have to meet, as Tony was saying, the applicable zoning regulations of that district in which it's zoned.
So would it be calculated as if it was a lot of its own in 3A?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so they,
All right. Well, it sounds like there's currently no plans to do this.
No, there is no place.
Okay,
It's been
so
used as a.
you're be advised that it's going to be complicated if you have plans, but I don't think that really affects the current proposal, right? I mean, the current proposal is separate for this.
There's no development,
Yeah.
including this proposal, it's just a lot line adjustment.
This
under
is
the
an
minors.
intellectual exercise, we want,
Yeah.
but yeah.
We just wanted to flag it so they know we're
No,
aware.
we did raise it and they understand, but since there's no plans, it really is
Okay.
an issue that is of no consequence maybe in the future. Thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns?
Fred, I'm sorry, did we get a second on this?
Yeah, it goes, Shannon. No?
Did someone second it?
I'll second it.
All right, Ira seconded it. There we go. Thank you. Okay, I'm just trying to find the actual resolution here.
Let's go forth.
Well, while you're finding that, the only other thing I wanted to note is since this happened, I guess, on both the right-of-way waivers, I mean, not right now, but at some point, we might want to actually just look at that and, because we have built conditions on all of our streets, so if we're really going to not be needing the additional right-of-way, then we might want to just narrow it down to the areas where we would truly want right-of-way, so that we're not just constantly having right-of-way waivers every time something like this comes up.
I mean, probably like the minor plans, we could waive it, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be another thing if someone was coming in to develop a large lot with a large frontage that they want to
Yeah.
have that right of way dedicated because you are actually going to be building something and you can work within that dedicated right of way. In of itself, it's getting to have it dedicated, it's almost like a sidewalk, you got to start somewhere. But for the fact that it's just there's no construction happening, no land development happening, that's one of the reasons. And
Yeah,
it
I mean,
is not needed on the current ground.
We have this category of minor plan that does not involve construction, really. It's all just subdivisions or like lot line adjustments, so that would be a logical place to.
You have subdivisions, then you have minor subdivisions, this is a minor subdivision.
Yeah, so I'm saying that would be a logical place to not worry about that. Okay. All right, so we are.
Ready to vote.
Yeah, ready to vote? All right, we are voting to approve the minor subdivision plan for a lot line change and the waiver requests for 10 Sabine and 243 North Woodland. All those in favor? I can't see Mike, but I assume you said, okay.
Yeah, I'm voting
I
yes.
just had a pop-up across the street. All right, it is approved unanimously.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you bearing with us through the rest of our agenda. All right. Okay, we have a couple appointments to make. So, would you like to nominate someone?
I would like to move the Borough Council appoint Tom Del Monte to the Parks and Rec Board, term ending December 31st, 2027. I'd like to
Well, okay, go ahead. Amend what?
amend the motion to suggest that we appoint Ryan, Mr. O'Donnell as an alternate.
Okay.
Second.
All right. First of all, do we have, do we need to make provisions for alternates for every board that we have, John, or is this?
I don't believe you need to.
Okay. Just want to make sure that
Trying to see
we can do this.
Are you aware, do we have an existing alternate spot, or you're requesting to make?
We
an
don't,
alternate spot for this?
I'm requesting to make an alternate spot.
Okay.
So let's let our staff tell us if that's, certainly the first part is acceptable. Let's check about the second part.
there is not for Park and Rec like it's on here in board, a vacancy spot. So, I mean, it would not be a position that is based in the ordinance. Doesn't mean that they can't do it.
Okay.
Meaning they can go to meetings.
Yeah.
If council says that this is the next person that we want to fill in, if someone does drop out, it can be that person. Either way, they're not going to have the ability to really take a vote.
Right.
That's true for any alternate.
Now, but to be clear, if a person doesn't show up at a meeting,
They would not be.
they can't just fill in at that
Right.
meeting.
Okay.
But we could create, because that's what we did with, when I was on planning commission, that was
Yeah.
done in planning commission.
You could create that through the ordinance to make that amendment.
I'm not sure that's.
For Park and Rec.
I think it would be easier just to make it an unofficial alternate position, since that is a purely if we decide to go that route. Ordinance changes are.
Yeah.
I think we should actually make it formal, and the reason being is that I think it provides more of a position for the person. Like, I can see a situation where you make someone an alternate, but they're not actually they're not really an alternate, and they kind of stop going and fall off. And the benefit of having the alternates is you get some muscle memory, you get kind of trained up. You do get like little test run meetings where you kind of get to actually like vote on things or whatever the case may be. And then when you have a vacancy, you have someone who's ready to step in rather than having a constant fire drill of looking for people.
That's worked really well in planning commission and the other commissions that we have alternates for. I think we should have more alternate, I think maybe almost all of them should have alternate positions.
I mean, we could make a rule that says that council can approve an alternate to any board or commission. And these are, well, with the exceptions of whatever the state has.
Yeah, there are, and the EAC is one of those.
Yeah,
Not
so
that
we
it says
could
you can't
list,
do
we
it.
could list a bunch of boards and have the same rule apply to all of them.
Right.
Mike had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say from experience, I started out as an alternate on civil service, and what you were talking about in terms of having the muscle memory, or, I got to attend a couple of meetings, got to see how it worked, went from alternate to member to chair in a fairly short period of time. So I agree that formalizing an alternate position is not a bad idea.
Okay.
So can we-
I'm going to suggest that if the desire is to make it formal, then right now we just appoint to the vacancy. And
Right.
we, communicate to assuming the council makes that appointment, then we check, first of all, check with him, see if he wants to be an alternate. And then we work, we change the ordinance, and then at that point, we would appoint an alternate. Does that make sense? Does that make kind of sense?
I will just note that when we were going through this process last month for the broader appointments at the beginning of the year, I was reading through each of the various boards and commissions and the methods by which members are appointed to them. And there's some that are regulated, we're preempted in how we appoint them, and others are however we want to. We have the ones that we legally have to under other laws and regulations, but we're a little bit all over the board in terms of how we appoint them. So I suggest that if we do pursue an ordinance amendment to create a vacancy on Parks and Rec, that we do a holistic look at all of our boards and commissions as to how we appoint them and come up with a more systematic and cohesive policy for doing so.
That's a great project
Well.
for James.
Well, we're already sort of doing that on F&A anyway. We're looking at all the boards and commissions, so we can just roll that into
So we'll add that to your
what
project.
we've been doing.
In that case, Cindy, would you like to revise your motion to?
Okay, I mean,
doesn't
I
sound
would
like it
be
is.
comfortable appointing Mr.
It doesn't sound like
McDonald.
council is ready to do that.
Do you want
To
to
make
keep
two-
with the motion and do it unofficially and let him
Yeah, I
know?
think-
We are teeing this up.
Yeah,
It
I
will
think
become
that's the
official.
I don't think council needs to take action on it. I think we could just do that.
Well, I think it'd be good to let him know.
Sure, but
so
I
he
mean, I don't
feels
think there
connected
needs to be a formal council action.
Well, so wait.
I think the
um,
formal action is to appoint to the vacancy. That is what we want. I would
And then-
entertain a motion to appoint someone to the vacant spot. That's what is in
have it
order.
for Tom DeMonte.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then Tom Delmonte.
And we can communicate
Okay,
to
that's fine.
Ryan that he can,
Is there a second for
I'll
that?
second for Tom
Okay.
DeMonte.
Would you like to speak a little bit about it, Mr. Del Monte? while you-
Oh, well,
nomination?
I think most of us know Mr. know Tom Del Monte. He has been involved in Parks and Rec over decades. He is a community member who looks at every plan online, whether it's stormwater or paving or parks and plan, and always offers substantive feedback or questions. He's at a point now where actually he was so impressed with the master parks plan and the process, which I said, I actually have some concerns about it, and he and I disagreed about that. And I thought, oh, you would be great because you ask really great questions. And he has the time now to do it. And again, I think most of us know Tom to be he's at every single event volunteering, and I'm thrilled that he's formally able to step up now.
Okay. Any other comments? I agree, he has some, I don't actually know him that well, but he did have some good things to say during the master park plan
Yeah.
comments, so. And does have a lot of volunteer experience with the parks, so
Yeah.
that's a plus.
Yeah, and with that
On the-
said-
On the Parks and Rec.
Absolutely, and I'm excited that someone new to the borough is interested in getting involved too, so I'm happy
It's
to.
not that.
Ryan,
Ryan. no.
Ryan, yeah, the second, no, he's not that new, no, to have somebody new come in, so.
I mean, as always, we thank everybody for
Yeah.
applying to our open positions. We need, our boards and commissions rely on volunteers stepping forward, and
I think they're both like really good candidates, and I'm really encouraged to see people stepping up and wanting to engage and getting involved.
Yep.
So, and I just want to note that like I appreciate Tom's like in his application he talked about transparency and outreach and just being connected socially to the public. So I appreciate that, and I think Ryan brings a lot of great skills too that I think will be useful, so
okay.
I agree.
Can I just mention that one other alternative for Ryan, if he wants to get involved, is we still, because Lynn O'Connor resigned from civil service and Craig Stevens is taking her term, we still have me on civil service. So if he were interested in replacing me, if he had any interest in that, we could offer that to him as well.
We could, that's quite a different topic. I don't see an obvious connection between
Yeah, Mike's just gonna keep asking.
That's right.
Just keep asking.
I thought I had found somebody to replace
Solid
me,
hearing
and then,
sentence.
you know, and then
No
Lynn
hard
resigned
passes.
anyway, so.
Okay.
Okay, well, why doesn't someone reach out to Ryan and explore all these opportunities?
Anybody know Ryan personally?
I've
Okay.
only met him.
Well, that-
Oh, wait,
There he is.
Ryan.
I'm sorry, hello. Well, thanks again.
Will you
for-
be our unofficial
Yeah.
alternate, and we are going to be teeing up an alternate.
All right. Apologize.
Oh,
Ryan.
embarrassing.
Try to-
And can we interest you in a civil service? Buy one.
Thank you, Cindy.
All right. Yeah, several council members started out volunteering in the Parks and Rec, so.
Okay.
All right, let's take the vote. So the motion is to appoint Tom Belmonte
Yeah.
to Parks and Rec. All those in favor? All right. And you heard our scheme.
Yeah.
So we'll, we do have alternates for several of our boards and commissions. We just don't currently have one in Parks and Rec, but we'll work on it. Okay. Is there a nomination for the EAC position?
I move that Borough Council appoint, do we nominate first?
Yeah, you can try to move to a point, that's fine.
Okay. I move to appoint Ryan Mierbach to the Environmental Advisory Council, term ending December 31st, 2027.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Discussion?
I don't know him, but I personally was really drawn to the fact that he's a middle school educator and talks about outdoor education and wellness, and I thought, boy, that really speaks to Elm Grove. And I think kind of a missing skill set in our EAC. We have lots of really high-level practitioners, and we don't have any educators in this sense, so I think that would really round out the EAC.
I had the same thought, and just because the Parks and Rec Board is now talking about outdoor education events at Elm Grove, I think that's an opportunity for partnership, potentially for partnership between EAC and Parks and Rec.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on appointing Brian, remember the name?
Mierbach.
Okay, to the EAC for the term ending December 31st, 2027. All those in favor?
Stepping out, but yes.
Okay, all right, that is approved. Okay, let's move to the item G, which is an executive engagement coaching proposal. Well, we need a motion.
I move that Borough Council approve the executive engagement coaching proposal.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, that's in the article. All right,
All right, so this is another service that was recommended to me actually by a former manager, Sean Metrick. Has utilized his services in the past, and seeing as I want to grow and really become effective in being your borough manager, I thought this would be a good opportunity to meet with an executive coach to have some one-on-one training and knowledge and expertise from this person to grow in this position and gain a skill set that will be necessary to be successful here. The proposal, as you see, does have a two-part, so it does consider an executive coaching for our new assistant manager as well, so I wanted to tee that up in the budget. So the one cost would be for myself, and then the other cost would be for the assistant manager, if that's something that you would like to support. In looking ahead at the budget that we did set aside for this year for those sorts of professional services, I'm now 2 months in with the consulting services that we have with Urban Edge Analytica, which is Matt West. And we are vastly below the projected hours, so we had budgeted for 10 hours a month. We're coming in much under that, so we do have some wiggle room, so this cost will still fit within that allocated budget amount. and will provide with additional services for career growth and just functionality in the position.
Okay. Very good. Any questions about the proposal?
So is this for both the assistant manager and borough manager?
Yes.
The proposal?
The proposal is, yes, for combined services. So it would be 12 months coaching for each of us.
And did you get this recommendation for this particular individual from someone? Or?
Yes, his name was given to me by Sean Metrick.
And so you didn't look at other possibilities, just this is the one?
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
We do prefer in general shopping around. I think that's a,
Yeah,
good,
it's not about price. For me, it's not about price. It would be about fit.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, you spoke, you spoken to the coach?
Yes, I had a preliminary conversation with him.
All right, it clicked okay. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, has to be, there's a,
I'm not looking for 3 bids. I just wanted
yeah,
to make sure that you know, like that because it doesn't help to have a coach that you don't get along that you don't get along with.
Right, so I had a preliminary kind of scoping discussion where we talked about goals and that's where we came up with the proposal. So we did talk about kind of where I was hoping to go, the services that his company provides, and came up with this plan of attack.
and if you decide a few months in that it's not working out, you can be done, or are we on the hook for the year's coaching?
Yeah, that actually wasn't made clear. I can certainly confirm with him before we execute on anything.
And I guess one other thing that's potentially an issue, I don't know, is if you have the same person coaching 2 people who work in an office. I mean, there's some advantages to it because they know the environment, but I guess maybe that would be more like if it were later on. I mean, would the new assistant manager start using the service right away, or?
Yes, as soon as they were onboarded and ready to start taking that on. So the 12 months would start from the first session.
Yeah, I guess it's not.
Yeah, that one I don't see an issue.
Well, I mean, it's potentially an issue if there's a conflict between the two, the manager and the assistant manager. But I'm not wishing that on us. But
Well, you may not, the assistant manager may not need a coach.
Right.
You're assuming that this could be an option.
I just
Right.
asked for this to be included as an option in the event that they were interested in the service. I don't want to make assumptions on their behalf, but I wanted to provide for that since I was looking to engage with this service now. So I wanted to provide that opportunity, so in the event that they were interested in that, we can help build their skills as well.
yeah, sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've used this coaching service like for myself and other people. So I mean, I'm fully in favor of it. I'm just trying to make sure you don't get into a situation where the person has a conflict of some sort or doesn't. I mean, the most important thing is that you get along with the person. That the person knows how to work with you.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like it is a 12-month contract,
Mm-hmm.
but you like the person.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation that I've had so far has been really good, and I think we're of an understanding of the things that I would like to target in those sessions.
Well, based on the proposal, it sounds like it would be, his focus is on organizational strength and creating a strong workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important for the borough to have that stability, to make it a workplace where people want to stay and work. So I would support it for that reason.
Okay, any other concerns? All right, let's vote on the executive engagement coaching proposal. All those in favor of authorizing? Okay. All right, it's unanimous. All right, 10H, which is the potential changes to the list of contributing resources. Can I get a motion?
I move to Borough Council direct the HARP to review the list of properties, determine if they should be added or removed to contributing resources within the historic district.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So this is something that I've been particularly interested in. We passed the Historic District Act a couple of years ago. We've had some time to sort of consider. We've seen the effects. It's had a very strong effect on limiting teardowns. They're basically impossible without permission from the council. You have to have a very good reason, like a serious structural defect or really some sort of compelling reason to take down a property. But it's my belief that the initial list of properties could use a little adjustment. These are some of the concerns I brought up when we were initially considering the historic district. I brought up my concern that I don't think garages belong on the contributing resources list. We submitted a narrative to the state of kind of what makes Narberth special, why a historic district is appropriate for Narberth, and it was talking about our history as a train suburb and sort of the development along the railroad line, which predates the automobile age. I think none of the description, none of the stories that we used to explain our historic district have much to do with the automobile. We talked primarily about the downtown and the residential areas. So the historic district includes a number of commercial buildings on Montgomery that were, again, reflecting sort of a later period than our narrative. So the buildings that are primarily oriented around large parking lots and reflect sort of strip mall mentalities that are a later historical development than much of the rest of the borough and do not resemble or fit into sort of the business corridor in our downtown area. So I think you've got our narrative talks about our downtown businesses, which were again developed through the railroad line and through a historical process, or they're older than some of the buildings on Montgomery, and I feel that some of these ought to be available for development should they be should someone wish it. I mean, our Historic District Act asks us to, when we're looking at contributing resources, to determine, I can't find the language, but we're meant to determine if they, let's see. Yeah, so a contributing resource, a building, site, structure, or object located within the historic district that adds to the association's architectural qualities or values for which a district is significant because it relates to the documented significance of the district. So I've talked a little about the documented significance of the district. It's kind of up to council to determine whether some of these properties are adding to these associations, adding to these values of the district. And in my opinion, these properties that I've highlighted, they just don't fit into the character of the district, and they are as a result, some of the protections on the contributing resource designation. I would like to ask the HARB their opinion on that and see if we should remove it.
Point of
Also, a couple-
clarification.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who's the author of this document? Oh, it's not signed.
I apologize. It was me. I've spoken to various council members and various folks while constructing it. It was originally sent to the HARB for their feedback, like unofficial feedback. My proposal is that we talk this over and we send some version, I would propose that we send some version of this document to the HARB as our suggestions for properties to look at. In addition, I highlight a few properties that I think do fit into the historic character and they do contribute to the neighborhood, and I'm not sure why they were overlooked in the initial designation of contributing resources, but I think I would recommend that we make them contributing resources. They're within the historic district and they contribute to the sort of walkable and the residential character of Narberth. Let me just find the exact. Okay, so the exact what I consider right now, determinations of contributing and non-contributing status may be amended from time to time upon a recommendation from the HARB and the approval of Borough Council. So that is what I'm recommending right now. I'm saying we send this to the HARB for a recommendation, and then down the line, we make our determination on changes. And
so you're not restricting them to this list, right?
I'm not. These are the properties that I think I mean, I think that without some strong suggestions, the HARB is very unlikely to recommend removing protections because that's against their nature. They're preservationists. They're going to be very interested in preserving as much as possible. So I find it very unlikely that they are going to come back to us with any recommendations for further changes that would reduce contributing resources.
I'm just asking for a clarification on the motion.
Yes, the motion would be to send this to the HARB for their recommendation. Send this list to the HARB and ask for their ask them to take this into account and make recommendations to us.
Sorry. Should this say review the attached list of properties, or are you just saying the overall list of properties in Narberth? I just don't understand if you're giving them a wider charge than this set of properties.
I would, I think we can't really restrict them from making other recommendations, but I would say pay attention to these properties, make recommendations based on, look at these properties, give us your recommendation on them. If they wish to make further recommendations, I think that's totally within their purview. They could do that, but I'm not expecting them to look at other properties. Let's put it that way. If they wish to, however, I think that would be appropriate.
So in this document, you've recommended that 107 to 111 forest be removed from protection. Having worked across the street, directly across the street from these buildings, and in the downtown of our downtown, I would fundamentally disagree with that assessment. I think the character of the buildings absolutely lends itself to a character of our downtown. And they have a hominess, and just because you don't like their parking lot in front, doesn't mean that it doesn't lend itself to a quirky, warm, inviting resource in our downtown. And they're used for psychology offices and a lot of different offices, which frankly, there's a benefit there to walking into a warmer environment than a clinical environment. I think it adds to our downtown. I fundamentally think that would be a huge mistake to remove these quirky buildings that I think add to the distinct character of our downtown.
So if I can piggyback on it, I actually do agree with you, but what at least I heard is not the official absolutely uniformly about 230 is it's this big monstrosity of a brick building.
Wait, which
And,
one?
Like 230 Haverford, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
the new development,
Yeah.
and we're losing the character of our
Yeah.
town. I would take these absolutely off of consideration from Essex to FAR. I would include Essex, the little.
And I would, yeah.
So I would even take that off. Again, I do actually personally agree with you, but I also think I've heard from numerous community members concerned about kind of a monolith.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm excited about 230, but this is a way that I don't think we should touch.
I think it would be a huge mistake, and we'd turn into every town USA.
With that said, though, I'm gonna contradict myself then and say, like on Iona, 334, 317, 307, I would not see those as adding to charm, and in fact, cause some major traffic issues.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my logic with some of the residential looking buildings on Essex and Forest is that this is our commercial district. You know, the story is these are 2- and 3-story mixed-use buildings that are built around the railroad, and they're commercial structures. And then to see a couple, you know, houses, I mean, I agree that they're well maintained, but they're you know, it's a bit of a jarring contrast. And they're a little out of character, you know?
I actually think they're reminiscent of the old character of Narberth. I think they're very reminiscent of the old character of Narberth. And I think we'd be remiss to remove it.
Okay.
So my comment around the properties in the downtown district, so it's these forest properties, I just think we really need to carefully consider what the balance is between preservation and redevelopment. I think there needs to be some buildings that are available for affordable rent for tenants who can't necessarily afford a rent for a new construction. So I think we need to like strike that balance. So like when I look at 107 to 111 Forest, I do think those provide valuable office space for business owners and those small businesses.
As a personal point, just to add context, the buildings on my block, the 3 buildings previously owned by John Phelan have been sold. All of I know as a business, I've been approached by the new owners wanting to raise our rents by significant amounts. If you want to maintain smaller, and this goes along with what Jean is saying, if you want to keep smaller, quirky businesses in Narberth, you have to allow them to have spaces that allow them to be born and grow. And can't always cost $45 a square foot because, you know, blooming businesses often can't afford that.
And if I may speak to the other side of that.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely buildings that are not rentable, that will be very difficult to rent out either because of the way it's structured or the way it's, or the condition maybe. And I think those are opportunities for redevelopment. But yeah, I think we need to be really careful about how we go about that.
Okay.
So being one of the businesses that was told I would incur possible unaffordable for me rent increase, I've been looking at different spaces. There's not a lot available. You know, so I think that's my perspective.
Okay. Do you share that concern about the buildings on Montgomery, which are similar kind of residential looking structures?
No, because it has a different feel. Because I used to have my business out on Montgomery.
Yeah,
I know exactly
Yeah.
what. I'm looking at. It's a totally different feel. It's a totally different, more typical commercial aspect out there. It's a very different vibe than you do it in the center of Narberth.
Let me look around and see if anybody else wants to make comments? Michael, I know you have a...
Yeah, well, I also just didn't realize that we were gonna come into this with the expectation we're gonna be talking about each individual component of it. I kind of thought that we were initiating a process for,
Yeah.
because I have a lot to say about the individual components of it, but I didn't want to get into that level of detail. I kind of
Why don't you stay broad then?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was more prepared for, which was just like, how did I was trying to get my head around how to evaluate this, and I kind of went back to the superstructure that established the district and the way that, the rationale that was outlined in that. And so when I thought kind of like we were going to be sending this all on to HARB, I just wanted to kind of give forward guidance to them. Hey, when this comes back, I'm going to want to know how these things comport or don't, how your recommendations fall under the adopted policy documents that we have in the resolution that we first adopted. That was what was used at the time to kind of determine these things. And you can reevaluate them, right? Like you kind of, I think Fred's made a good case as to why a lot of these may not actually meet the definition of a contributing resource, right? But I would kind of want to know what the rationale is under that, so I could know how to evaluate that. In terms of also looking through the historic district, the other component of it is we have this concept in the historic district of the ability to functionally remove things from the historic district by offering certificates of appropriateness. And there's criteria associated with that, one of which speaks to kind of there being a broader public benefit. So I went back to our comprehensive plan to look at kind of what we established as the goals for where we wanted to go. And I think Montgomery Avenue, as everyone's already kind of agreed here, like it really clearly like upfront states multiple times that Montgomery Avenue is no one's definition of a great space to walk or just kind of generally be. And that we really would like to get to something that better reflects the walkability of the town. So that I think was pretty unambiguous, and why I thought like it didn't seem that controversial to me to be like, okay, while you're evaluating this, consider it within the context of our broader policy goals. Downtown, I think the comp plan also strikes kind of the balance of the conversations that we were talking about before, where it calls for both the balancing of preservation with new construction, because that's kind of the only way we're going to meet our policy goals. Interestingly, I was going back to like Jane Jacobs' Death and Life of Great American City. She speaks at length about how you need both of these things, both because your older spaces are inherently going to be the most affordable spaces. Even if the rents are going up, they're not having to make back the cost of new construction on day one in the same way that new construction is, while at the same time needing some new, she kind of refers to it as like a granary where you have the grain coming in, you have some more of the older grains and you have some of the newer grains, but all together it's forming the granary of your space. And that just being a dynamic process, because you need those things, you need, especially in the age, and you know this better than I do, but especially in the age of like Amazon and you're competing with all of these other things, the folks that are living the closest are going to end up being the backbone of a lot of your commercial spaces. For the most part, so figuring out kind of where that balance is probably going to be difficult, but that's why I figured that HARB gets a kind of like a first crack at it, but that's a continuing conversation, which is why I was even with kind of like the individual, like not trying to get into the individual components of it now, but starting a conversation of it so that we can engage with that. And then what else? I had a whole like listing of things as I was thinking through this. I think that covered most of it. Most of the sheds and other accessory structures were non-contributing already. So I kind of wanted to know if there's a rationale why some of those ones are still contributing and should remain to be. I would kind of want the actual rationale for that, but that seemed a bit odd. And then I would just want to know, given that the ordinance allows owners to continue to challenge this, to challenge the contributing, like any contributing or non-contributing resource status, and also to seek certificates of appropriateness with more clearly defined criteria. If owners are going to be, I would rather know what those arguments are up front, rather than not know that and then wind up through some more extensive process later on. So that was kind of like at a high level without trying to wade into the details on it, kind of the way I approached that. And I would kind of offer those concepts out there. I circulated a document that was much more unnecessarily detailed earlier.
All right, John, you want to talk a little about the requirements in terms of notifying owners?
Yeah, so there's, the code says that notice should be given. It doesn't exactly state the day's notice that should be given prior to the HARB meeting to discuss any changes to someone's property. I'd recommend doing 30 days notice, and then also advising them that if council's going to take action based upon its recommendation at a future meeting, give them the notice of when that meeting would be. It's less important if you're trying to remove something from the HARB because it doesn't really affect someone's property value.
Removing the protection, removing the contributing status.
Something might be appreciated by that. It's a little bit more difficult if you're adding protections onto someone's property because you are then affecting their property rights. The code does then provide the right of the person who owns that property to contest whether or not it should be on or off of the list of contributing resources, and it says that the owner shall provide historical research and documentation to demonstrate that the designation of the property should be changed, should not be changed, based upon the association's architectural qualities and value significance of the district. So the code does anticipate the right for the property owner to appear at the meeting of the HARB to try to convince the HARB that it should be recommended to be added. The recommendation for the HARB is not the end, it then has to go back to council to actually make the formal change to have it either named or not named as a contributing resource. That would then be reflected in the initial resolution that was passed, which lists as a contributing resource, not contributing resource for the properties, and then it would just be amended to reflect the same.
Okay. So we would be looking at the April HARB meeting.
I would think
30
that
days.
if you were, at this point, for the 30 days, you'd be looking at the April HARB meeting. I believe that the council meeting was then later that same week, so you could give property owners notice of both meetings related to what is anticipated to occur.
Okay. So I know Jean, you also had concerns about the notification. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that we should give the notification as early as possible, or just give them enough opportunity to raise any objections.
Right. So 40 plus days, 45 days probably, if we sent it out soon. More than 30.
But wouldn't they want to have a discussion among themselves about, to come up with their list before you start notifying the property owners?
Well, we're going to give them this list as strong points, let's say. They're not going to do it on their own. We have to give them, we have to really prod them. I mean, they're not going to generate.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure why. I mean, why wouldn't they want to add things to the, I mean, some of these things you're proposing are adding to the list.
And maybe they'll come up with more, in which case the problem is, like, before they have any formal discussion of a recommendation, we have to notify. So.
Correct. So, and I think there is time to actually advise the HARB and confirm that they're willing to take on these recommendations at their next scheduled meeting. Then it'd be safe to know that the HARB does have the time and inclination to move forward with this at the direction of council. If at those meetings, other topics come up, other properties come up that they'd like to add, they can do that anytime they'd like, but you're right, they would then have to schedule a separate meeting later on to make a recommendation, which, again, they don't need council's approval to make their own recommendations, but there should be notice to the property owners before the HARB makes a recommendation.
Well, they do have a March meeting, Ira, so if they wanted to add any properties, if they wanted to propose adding protections to any properties, they could decide that they're going to add those to the April agenda, basically. So they could decide at their next meeting that they're gonna look at what we've got and they're gonna talk about a couple more. And then we could send out the letters and still be within that 30-day window, I think.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
I guess, I'm just proposing slightly softer direction to them that suggests this as like a starting point, but, you know, and offers them the opportunity. I know they have it anyway. It's just, it just seems a little bit heavy-handed to, you know, hand them this pre-baked list, that's all. I'm saying.
I think you're right that we should be open to any alternatives that they have and add.
But I think we need to give some guidance, right? You're not asking them to reevaluate the entire borough. I do think there's some timeliness. I mean, Montgomery Avenue, I think we can probably all agree, no one's probably gonna make a really strong case for anything other than Price House on Montgomery Avenue.
I'm not proposing any changes to the process.
Correct,
to be clear.
everyone
That's,
agrees to
We
that.
all agree that
But
that is
you know,
deserving of protection.
Absolutely, but you know, we also have this grant now to look at pedestrian safety. I'm assuming that's gonna change some opportunities if we remove some of those protections on Montgomery Avenue when we look at pedestrian walkways. If we don't, my concern therefore is if we don't give some guidance to HARB, this will be a process that is a year long versus the first iteration of what we're asking them to review.
Could it be more generalized guidance? So like, I'm thinking of like, there's the Montgomery Avenue district, so that's, you know, that's its own thing. There's a downtown district, and that's like talking about getting the right balance there. Was there anything else?
There's a few on Iona that are kind of in between that,
Has
that's
the
really
planning on the Montgomery Avenue, like transportation planning even started yet?
No, and I don't even know if we've confirmed that we were awarded that grant.
I think we were.
Yeah,
But are we still gonna get
everything's
the
up in the
grant?
air, like, I don't
Is it
know.
federal?
Was it state?
Oh, that.
It's federal?
federal.
Oh, it's federal money.
Oh, well, I think we should probably plan on not getting that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That's what I'm thinking.
I hadn't realized that. Okay.
Ugh.
Well, look, what I'm hearing from council is a lot of, you know, that some of the guidance from the downtown area, there's not really a consensus on saying these are, I don't think there's a consensus on council. So maybe what we say is, look, here's some things on Montgomery that we strongly believe, that we believe ought to be changed. We are interested in your thoughts on the downtown area. And we have identified these buildings that we think should be added. We are interested in your thoughts on that as well. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that they need, but I do think that we clearly, so like, we clearly do have things in our comp plan that speak to needing to identify areas in our downtown while also preserving other areas. So I don't want them to take that to say, just don't look at that at all, except where you're adding things in downtown. I think that they should actually have an exercise to look at at some of the areas that you've identified, and then even, like, I'm sure they will come to the conclusion on a lot of these that they want them to stay on, but I do think that they should, like, again, like, if we're actually gonna take the comp plan seriously in terms of what it's calling for these two areas, I do think that we do need to have some sort of exercise where someone looks at that, and we know that that was something that was flagged the first time around in the Planning Commission recommendation report as an area for further study, and we never followed up on that, so I saw this as kind of following up on that exercise.
So maybe we give them some principles that we would like them to work with. We say, here are our principles in the comp plan. We would like you to bear these in mind. Look at some of the downtown buildings. Tell us what you think, you know, which of those buildings potentially should be not contributing.
Yeah.
Whereas we have some firmer ideas for other areas, and this is why.
Can I add
Go
one
ahead.
other consideration for, I guess, the criteria? I just want to be sure we're also very careful about removing the designation for any multifamily housing, because I think that
I totally agree.
that affects the availability of affordable housing, just because if that gets torn down, a single family home is probably.
I did identify one building
Yeah.
that I think is architecturally out of character. It is a multifamily
I
house.
love that property, by the way.
All right, it doesn't sound like there's consensus for leaving that. So we're left with Montgomery and Iona, those three buildings on Iona. we strongly believe that you should look at these. And then we were gonna give you some principles to work with while looking at the downtown. We have 3 buildings that we think we strongly believe we should add protections to. You know, we would, I don't think we need to encourage them on here are the principles we think apply for protecting buildings, but if you have thoughts for that, please give those to us as well. And let us know after your next meeting so we can notify affected businesses.
Which would be, my understanding, 123 Windsor Avenue, 214 Marion Avenue, 144 North Narberth Avenue are the 3 addresses that you would propose to add as contributing resources.
That's correct.
And then 334 Iona, 317 Iona, 307 Iona would have removed as contributing resources.
And then a number on Montgomery.
And then on Montgomery, 720 Montgomery, 610 Montgomery, 830 through 856 Montgomery, you would have removed as contributing resources. Everything else on your list would not be addressed. Garages would be addressed.
Does anybody want to object to that idea? That I think I don't know why garages were included in the first place. I think they picked ones. The reason why they picked some that were in the second lot layer. That was what they determined. Is like if they were built before 1945 and in the second lot layer. I think that's what they used to determine them. But I don't see where in our narrative or what really applies. So let's have them explain their rationale if they think that the garages ought to be protected.
And I don't believe that everybody with the garage needs to receive notice of that, if that question comes up.
Okay, yeah, I hope not. I mean, okay, does that sound like a reasonable approach?
I also emailed you about, and I don't know if this is within that scope, but just about communication. I do feel like the entire process is a little bit opaque for people to navigate. So I don't know if HARB can make the necessary steps to make that a clearer process for homeowners to make, for example, like make alterations that would fall under the, the historic district. Make it easily available on the website. I don't think we even have that on the website. And I don't think we have a list of contributing resources on publicly available either.
Oh.
No, but that sounds like a great section that we can put on our new website.
Website.
Yeah.
So I think communication is super important.
Yeah, and you'd raised some concerns about the time frame. How did we determine the time frame for you have X many days to go to the HARB and then X many days between that and council? Do you remember how those were determined, those deadlines?
When we drafted the ordinance?
Yeah, what's the deadlines that are in the ordinance? 60 days to HARB and then another 30 days to council.
I believe we did move them up significantly from what was proposed in the model ordinance because it would have taken way too long to force a review. We've tried to get that moving along quickly, but still trying to work within the confines of scheduling meetings and doing the work that needs to be done, meeting with the those that are doing the reviews of the buildings as well.
Okay, so we might not be able to really shrink that down further logistically, it seems like.
I mean, at this point, I know that Kevin Walsh has done a few.
Yeah.
And if he believes that it can be moved up more based upon everyone's schedules, we can certainly move up those timeframes as well.
Well, let's get Kevin's opinion on that. He's he definitely is the expert. Sitting on the HARB and being the person who judges the applications, and that's his. Okay, and yeah, I like the idea of making sure that the new website incorporates the HARB's fee. So we'll also ask them to work with find somebody on their committee to work with the website designer to make sure we have a good explanation for residents who are trying to navigate the process. Okay. So
but yeah, I mean, my general concern about the length of the approval process, the review process, was that it does seem very long to me. I think it's up to 60 days for the HARB review, and then if they're not able to meet with the HARB, then it goes to council. So it could really extend like for months, and that ends up being like very expensive for a homeowner to wait for those. That's on top of the permitting that the permitting takes for permitting.
It's true, I mean, it absolutely is, but
Yeah.
you're correct. All I can say is that the original log ordinance was much longer, and I think we actually put in the protections that say if no action was taken.
Yeah, I remember that
We
discussion.
step in because we can't let someone sit around forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll ask
I
Kevin.
reflect Gene's concerns as well.
We'll ask Kevin if there's a way, in his opinion, if there is a way to speed that up or not.
Again, that's just a maximum as well. Obviously, if you could get it in within 30 days, just because of the timing, you can get it in within 30 days. It's just sort of the ceiling on what was provided before it sort of defaulted to the next level.
Okay. So I had talked to Michael about trying to incorporate some of his comments into the guidance that we give to the HARB. So we've got a motion on the floor. I would propose that, I think we have consensus on what we're specifically going to bring to the HARB's attention and what generally we would like to bring to the HARB's attention. I'm going to propose that Michael and I work on the actual document and then let's get it to the HARB in time for their next meeting, which will be in March. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay. Andrew, you look skeptical. You.
No.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to make sure what the motion was. What was the exact motion? Anybody got that in front of me?
Exact motion was Borough Council direct the HARB to review the list of properties to determine if they should be added or removed as contributing resources within the historic district.
Okay, I think that fits within that motion, so I think we can just...
With the assumption that they're not looking at the downtown.
Well, I think we are going to give them, we are going to suggest that we're not going to give them specific buildings, we're going to say, you tell us.
But you are going to give them specific buildings, the ones that I...
Yeah, the ones that you mentioned, we're going to
Yeah.
give them those specifically. And then we are going to ask them to look more broadly at the downtown because council doesn't have a consensus on what should happen there. So we'll ask them to look at it.
Yeah, and like, I'm not predetermining any of these, right? I want to hear what the rationales are coming back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? Sound good, everybody?
Yep.
All right, let's vote on sending this request to the HARB. All those in favor? Okay, it is unanimous.
That's
Thank you,
a point
everyone.
of order. I think there may need to be some clarity or direction to the HARB or an understanding of how long they think it will take to
Yes.
discuss each one of these properties. Because if we're giving notice to property owners and the HARB does not get around to discussing the property, it might need to then be continued to another day or continued to another day. So you may want to prioritize first discussing the ones that you'd be adding on to the
That's a
list
good idea.
of
That's a good
discussion.
idea. Because we feel they're more likely to be...
The notice is more important to be provided on those than it would be for removing from the list. Or obviously, a general discussion doesn't mean notice at all.
I think the HARB is also more likely to just say yes to that suggestion. So, okay, so let's ask them. We'll ask them to prioritize or to begin with the buildings which we're proposing to add to the contributing resource list, and then to tell us, in their opinion, how long the rest of the discussion will take for the other buildings.
And then we will be able to adjust our notices accordingly. To the other ones, we could say, we'll begin the discussion on whether or not it should be removed. And again, I'd be surprised if someone comes to advocate that they want to remain on that.
That makes sense. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay. All right. That concludes our action items. We have no discussion items. Reports have been filed and are in the packet. Committee reports. F&A.
Okay.
We didn't have a workshop meeting, so committee reports now.
We are, we're continuing our communications review sort of squishily. The rules of council are, hasn't been any changes recently, but we're holding off on that until we can get a more final version of public comment guidelines, which we worked on tonight earlier. And we feel we're close to a final draft on that.
But not next month then, right? Because you still have another month, at least another month of discussion before you.
I think the goal is we're going to try to have review a final draft next month for at F&A.
Okay, so then it'll probably, okay. Well, okay, depending on what you do then, and it could be on the council agenda afterwards.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if anyone's interested in how that's shaping up, it is in the F&A packet, or I can send you a copy. Check it out. We are continuing with boards and commission reviews. Still doing some work on Human Relations Commission and Shade Tree. Really haven't tackled any others, but based on we're gonna eventually get through all of them, and I think we'll add the consideration of adding alternates to some of these.
Okay.
I think that's worthwhile. What else do we do? Sorry, I didn't prepare.
It's all right. Do you have your agenda from the meeting?
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. Communications. Not really. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Who's next? Infrastructure.
Talked about all my items.
Okay. Public health and safety.
So public health and safety did not meet last week, but I just wanted to flag that the 200 Blackwood Price Avenue, we did receive plans for that, and then we're sending that back to the drawing board a little bit, just because it was removing a large amount of parking spaces, which we heard from the residents that that's not what they wanted. So kind of a scaled down version of that. So we expect to talk about that at next month's meeting.
And I will just note, I shared the questions that we had about the plan to Pannoni. So they're looking at those and will provide us with responses ahead of the committee meeting so that we can have a good discussion there about it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jean. Any new business? Old business?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say it, but we appointed Mr. Stevens to civil service. I'll just remind the borough manager that civil service does require an actual oath of office and swearing in. It's, I think, the only one that requires that. So, and I think the mayor typically does that if I'm correct. So we should probably contact him and just make sure he can't serve until he's sworn in. So we need to arrange for that swearing in. Could be at public health and safety. It could be at our business meeting.
Okay.
I guess so I just didn't know whether you knew that we had to do that.
Happy to do it whenever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other new business, old business, comments for the good of council?
Can I give a boost to the Civic Association potluck coming up on Sunday, this Sunday at 5 to 7? It's going to be right here in Borough Hall. It is free for residents. It's a tradition Civic Association's had for a number of years. It's been down during the pandemic, and they're reviving it now. But it's a great event. It's really nice to mix with neighbors. And I encourage all of you to show up with some food. If you go to narberthcivic.org, they have a link to RSVP and register potluck. Should be a fun thing.
All right, thank you. I'll be there. Any other comments? Okay, so we will have an executive session after this meeting. We'll discuss disposition of borough real estate, which will include a potential lease change to 201 Sabine. We have a personnel matter, and we have some enforcement issue that will be discussed. We will return after the executive session to potentially to discuss to vote on the lease approval for 201 Sabine, but that is the the only item which we will consider after the exec session. I'll take a motion to adjourn into exec session.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, all those in favor of adjourning? Okay, we'll be adjourned into exec session, and thank you, everyone. All right, I need a minute. We'll be returning. All right, this is council returning to session to discuss 201 Sabine lease extensions and changes to existing leases. I will take a motion. We didn't make a motion.
And then to be clear, this is for the lease termination agreement for IVF, and then a Lavner Camps lease extension for their existing lease in place, and then an additional Lavner office extension and expansion lease agreement that would be expanding into that space that's being terminated with IVF. So there's 3 separate agreements.
Okay. For a second. All right, so I'll try to summarize what's happening. We have one tenant who wishes to leave their lease early. We have another tenant, which is Lavner, which wants to assume that lease, essentially. They want to take over that space. They will pay slightly more than what the current tenant is paying. And in addition, Lavner wants an extension. A renewal
of their original larger space that they had.
Okay. So that is what we are, what we have on the table. The proposal is that any fees from Yentis, who is our property manager, that would be related to the changes in the lease, that those be absorbed by the tenant is proposing to get out of the lease, which is IVF.
So that's related to the termination agreement.
Right. Okay, so that is the proposal that's on the table. To discuss this further. Okay. Let us vote on these changes to the lease, to the various leases. All those in favor? Okay. All those in favor? All right. It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. I apologize for being so late. I would once again take a motion to adjourn. Second. Okay, all in favor of adjourning? Yeah. We are adjourned.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah.